Hey, y'all, welcome back to a Monday, August 5th, 2024 edition here on the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. We got a fun show for you guys today. We got our pod divided college football show with Georgia superfan Matt Green and myself talking all things Georgia and Tennessee to kick off this show. We also talk ACC preview. We did Big 12 last week, so if you missed that, you can go check that out over there on chasethomaspodcast.com and all that good stuff. If you missed our Big 12 previews, we continue on our college football preview series here as we just 26 days, 25 days, something like that, until Tennessee's back in action here on August 31st against Chattanooga. But before we get to that, we still have more college football to talk about, and the ACC is up today. We also talk about Tennessee landing the top 2026 player in Faizon Brandon out of North Carolina. We talk a little bit about Juan Gaston winding up at Georgia, the four-star offensive tackle from Westlake, and then we also do our ACC Buy or Sell conference preview. So we talk about Clemson, whether or not they're the favorite between Florida State, the history of the conference being really dominated by Clemson and Florida State over my entire life, dating back to 1991, with some Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech sprinkled in there a bit. We talk about Virginia Tech. Is it time for Drones and company to break through and become the next great Virginia Tech quarterback, like the Vicks and Randall and Logan Thomas and Tyrod Taylor and so many great Hokies from years ago? Wake Forest, are they in for another really bad season? What does that look like for the Clawfence? And Georgia Tech, are they the chaos team in the conference with Haynes King and company there? So all that and more coming up next here on today's edition of the Chase Thomas Podcast. Don't forget, folks, you can check out this show each and every day on YouTube. You can watch full episodes, clips, shorts, all that good stuff. YouTube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. Like and subscribe if you have not already done so. That would greatly appreciate it. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or however you get your podcasts. If you're a frequent listener of the program on the audio format and you have not already done so, please, please, please hit that pause button right now and leave this show a 5-star rating and write us a review. It helps other people find the show, and it helps this very show continue to grow. You can get in touch with the program at chasethomaspodcast@gmail.com and then access all of my previous episodes, learn about what we've got cooking here each and every day on the podcast at chasethomaspodcast.com. All right, Uncle Dave.
The Chase Thomas Podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, down there in Tequila, Georgia. My good friend and fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is it's good to be back. You checking out the Olympics this week? Oh, let me guess. Chase Thomas thinks the Olympics are overrated.
I don't even know if it's an overrated thing. I like people are excited and are enjoying it. Would I be lying if I said I've watched very much, if any, of the Olympics at all? Yes. It's just not. I was actually talking to my grandmother Nanny about this earlier today in a call, where it just doesn't move the needle for me, Matt. Like, there's just something about it that the kind of stuff that it is, and I understand it's not a popular take, but I'm also one of those people. I'm at 33 years old where it's fine. Like, enjoy what you want to enjoy if you're having a good time. Like, I saw the 100 meter was super close this evening, and USA won that, which was cool, and it's all fine, but it's on at weird times. I've got other things to read and do, and Tennessee football's back here in a couple of weeks. Got a lot of writing to do, getting ready for this season. TPL videos are back as our player videos are getting back, and go check that out if you have not already. But I don't know. It's just I'm in football mode, man. And then I'm watching some Braves when I can during the week and all that good stuff too. So, I mean, I don't know. I've turned the page, and I'm really just all the way here for football season. Then going to the movies with my wife and doing all that. So I don't know. It's just not.
You don't have to tell me all the things you're doing instead of.
I'm just saying,
watching
like my
Olympics.
priority list. I guess that was a long way of me saying it's just not high on my priority list, Matt Green.
You're
I'm
just a
based on you
hater.
asking this. I'm gonna go ahead and guess you're really in on the Olympics.
No, I'm really not. I don't think anyone's really that in on the Olympics anymore, like except for old people. But I think some people just love America. It sounds like you don't. So, I don't know what to say to you, but you watch the Olympics and you root on the USA. That's what it's all about. But no, I mean it's just a cool for like casual viewing. It's these sports that you never really watch any other time, but it's like, oh, this is cool. Men's volleyball.
The Gold Zone was a good thing. I saw that last weekend. That was a good idea. Whoever invented the Gold Zone was because like we watched the fencing stuff, which was interesting. I also don't really know anything about these sports. I don't really understand a lot of these sports.
I got a hot take for you, sir. The Gold Zone, totally overrated. Maybe I didn't watch it long enough, but I was just like, the whole purpose of Red Zone, and I love that they had the Red Zone personnel on there, but the whole purpose of Red Zone is I don't want to watch ads. I'm seeing so many ads on the Gold Zone, and it's just like so much downtime. Like I get they're giving you from this sport to this one, but it's just I feel like there's way too much downtime for and way too many ads for me to actually get excited about it. I really, at the end of the day, like 100 meters. I think the 200 meters might be Monday night. And I guess that's, oh man, I'm blanking the dude who won the gold medal. Apparently that's supposed to be his better competition is the 200 meters. So it's a pretty elite
the guy
list.
Who won tonight, Lyle?
Yeah, Noah Lyles. It's a pretty elite list. They showed like the handful of people that had done it that had 100 meter and 200 meter in the same Olympics, and so that'd be big time. But I mean, yeah, outside of like USA basketball, the 100 meters, it's casual viewing for me.
Yeah, which is okay. I don't know. I'm not gonna push anybody to look at it one way or the other. It's just not gonna go ahead and tell y'all that it's been on the main screen in the Thomas household here in Knoxville, Tennessee for the last couple of weeks.
No,
I will say though, what it's
I don't think anyone really gets that excited anymore. I think ratings probably indicate that.
I don't know.
I think the host,
thing. I just don't.
The host
why do
cities don't
people
even
care
get that
about ratings? Why do
anymore.
casual fans? If you're not, that's a big pet peeve of mine. It's like why I wasn't thinking about ratings when I'm watching Hawaii and Boise late on a Saturday night during college football season. I don't care. I don't know why. I don't know why folks care.
There's some good television shows that have gotten canceled because they didn't get good enough ratings. But no, that's fair. But I just mean I think in general the enthusiasm for the Olympics is not what it once was, and like the host nations don't even seem to enjoy it like they once did.
I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting, but a lot of people still like it, and that's cool too. But Matt and myself clearly not. It didn't get us this year. Maybe 4 years from now. I will say
I always love watching the USA basketball team though. I love watching those guys play together.
I like the Women's World Cup. Like I like watching the women's U.S. national team just win 6-1 and just like dominate like the New York Yankees of the sport. That I've always enjoyed that. Like who was it? Japan years ago, where they like in a big match where they were up like what? It was some crazy number where they just dominated him. And was that the final? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Was that the world? That may have been the Women's World Cup. They beat.
That's what I'm saying.
They beat them like 5-0 or something like that. Right?
And it got ugly in a hurry, if I remember correctly. It was just cool. I just remember that experience. But yeah, I don't know. It's the World Cup in general is cool. I like that a little bit more. I also would probably say I think the Winter Olympics is cooler than the Summer Olympics. I don't know if that's more of a hot take.
Winter Olympics.
I like watching some snowboarding. I'll watch some snowboarding.
Oh man.
I don't know. I think I could watch some of that, but yeah, by and large, still not my jam. Matt Green, what's the temperature in the room down in Tequila with the Falcons moving back up to 6A? No 7A anymore in high school football. What's been the coffee talk over there in Tequila, Georgia? What have you overheard when you've been moving around the area? Are they nervous? Are they feeling good about moving up to 6A? The highest classification this year. What's the temperature in the room for the gold and navy blue?
I'd have to see the region. I'd have to see what region they're in. The 7A thing, that was weird. It just existed for like a couple years and went away. But yeah, I think so Buford, are they 6A in there? I think they were in the same region with with Decula as Lanier. Are they still in that 6A? I should probably know that.
Here's who's in their region in 6A. Let me pull this up. They are, wow, I'm having to scroll down here for a second. Let me see here. In that one, it's Parkview's. Okay, yeah, they're in Buford. So they are in with Buford, Central, Gwinnett, Collins Hill, Decula, Mill Creek, Discovery, and Mountain View.
Gauntlet.
Yeah, it's tough.
Good to see Decula getting back up to the big boy table, though.
There's never been a high school in the state of Georgia that's bounced between classifications quite like the Decula Falcons. I feel like they have been all over the place and they can never settle. Like they're just always in a different classification.
That's true. I think fun fact for you. Decula is actually the oldest city in Gwinnett County. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, that's a fun fact for you. The I don't know, Elisha Wynn. I don't know. It's some house you've like driven by 100 times, like a historical landmark. Just looked it up one day, and it was the first house in Gwinnett County. It's kind of crazy.
Interesting.
The Decula go way back. I think like 1905 or something. Decula High School goes back to like 1910. It's kind of crazy.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, that's what the people tuned in for. Let's get to some college football.
You don't want to dive into the Discovery. What are they? Maybe Titans? I want to say
that
Titans.
Sounds right.
Yeah. We'll save that for another pod. Dog bites, Matt Green. What is new for the Georgia Bulldogs this week?
Well, for the Georgia Bulldogs this week, I didn't really prepare anything for the dog bites, if I'm being honest with you, sir.
Well, we can talk Juan Gaston. Juan Gaston officially in the boat. Georgia gets another big time.
I was going to go to Tennessee.
Well, it was down to Tennessee, Oregon, and Georgia, and Gaston is huge. Westlake kid, his teammate Travis Smith, 4-star. He ends up at Tennessee over Georgia, but Juan Gaston was kind of an interesting recruitment because he really didn't talk, and like a lot of the folks who've been on this recruitment for months have just not really had a firm grasp on what he was going to do. Georgia made the most sense. His size and figure and style seems to fit more for Georgia's scheme versus what Tennessee likes to do with tempo and everything else. So you never know that he could end up there. Obviously, his teammate picked Tennessee, and there was some interest there, but ultimately he picks the Dogs, and I feel like it's a better schematic fit and for what Georgia likes to do. And I mean, Georgia is just bringing in dude after dude on the trenches. Like that's where they're winning again. If you look at this 2025 class here for the Dogs, it's Matt Green, it's Griffin, it's or Gibson, excuse me. They're trying to get Justice Terry in the boat. They're trying to you get Juan Gaston, you get Cortez Smith out of my alma mater at Parkview. He's a huge interior offensive lineman in this class. You can tell where the priorities continue to lie. And Graham Coffey, friend of the program, coworker over there at Dog Central, who was on the pod earlier this week, he had a good tweet about this, and I'd be curious to get your perspective as a Georgia fan here, Matt Green. Let me pull it up because I thought it was really interesting the way he summarized kind of what Kirby Smart is doing and what their priorities are. So here's the tweet from Graham Coffey over at Dog Central. Quote, "If you watch UGA recruiting, you see what the priorities are. Lines dictate games. UGA will let a skill guy chase a bigger deal, but they rarely lose a lineman they want. The difference between the number 5 and number 40 wide receivers in a class is small, but there are very few big guys who move well."
Yeah, exactly. Georgia clearly has a type. Like this dude is 6'7", 345. Like you just see how many dudes as Georgia get out of high school, but you actually have to take some weight off of them when they get to college now, because there's so many 6'6", 6'7", 350 pounders. Like that dude that is actually now going to be on the 2024 team, Jaw Jackson, the basketball player. Like this dude's like 6'10", like 250. Like
yeah.
Very agile. Watching his basketball. As soon as I watch his basketball highlights, I'm like, this dude can play. Like he's agile for a 350 pounder. And if this guy can play football, like that's an absurd body. But without that guy's obviously a project and not gonna, most likely not gonna play in 2024. But this clearly see like when Kirby Smart took over, that was like the very first thing he said in like his introductory press conference was that Georgia just needed to get better on the lines of scrimmage. And you look at them now, and it's not only the biggest offensive line in the country, because there was a year under Mark Richt, I want to say like 2010, 2011. I want to say when it was like Cordy Glenn was one of the guys on that offensive line, where that stat was always shown during Georgia games that, oh, look at Georgia's offensive line is bigger than the probably San Diego Chargers at that point. Like they were bigger, the biggest offensive line in football. It's like, okay, well, how many of those guys played in the NFL? Like maybe one or two. Like it wasn't a loaded, there was no first, second round picks on that offensive line. And now you just look at this entire year in and year out, it's a bunch of 340 pound dudes that can move and just maul you. So that's definitely the thing I'm most excited about. Like looking at this Georgia, like obviously the first week of fall practice started this week, and just Georgia's too deep on the O line is just, I don't think there's anyone in college football that really is like, there might be some question marks on the offensive line in just terms of you don't know who's going to be in exactly what spot, but it's going to be either guys with experience or just guys with tons of talent.
Yeah. Broderick Jones, former tackle, 6'5", 315, 5-star, class 2020.
He's probably the smallest one too, for sure.
Well, 1 year later, Amarius Mims, 6'7", 340. I mean, like we talk about, I mean, there's some dudes here. I mean, Jamari Saylor, 6'4", 325, another 5-star earlier.
I mean, Isaiah Wilson was 6'8", like 340 coming out.
I mean, just they're going after a type, like you said. Like they're going to play bully ball, and like there's nothing you can do. And I mean, one of those things about Georgia is like they can win those battles, and like Graham talked about in the tweet is like that's their priority, is having the best trench play of anyone in college football. And sometimes that will backfire. Sometimes they will run into teams like Ohio State who can match them. And Ohio State, Alabama has been able to match them obviously last year in the SEC title game. Georgia goes to Alabama. Georgia goes to Ole Miss. We'll see what that looks like. And Georgia goes to Texas, and we'll see how that ultimately unfolds. But like when you're in these tough road environments and you're certain, like you want to be able to win in the trenches. And I mean, Michigan, I mean, they were a mauling team. Like they were able to run the ball really well. They were an old school team, and Michigan won because of their trench play really in the last few years. And Harbaugh really instilled the toughness and dominance. And you even look at Texas since Sark's been there, and what that defensive line was this past year, and how good that offensive line has been. And yeah, so I think Juan Gaston, something tells me he'll probably be the next great offensive tackle at Georgia. Talented kid, and his tape is pretty fun. A lot of pancakes on his high school tape over at Westlake, and it's a power program down there in the state of Georgia. Speaking of recruiting here, Matt Green, the Tennessee Volunteers land the #1 overall player in the 2026 class, Faizon Brandon out of North Carolina. So that puts another, we talk about like their priorities. I think it's pretty clear where Heupel and Tennessee's priorities are in terms of high school recruiting. And that is they are going to load up on blue chip quarterbacks and make sure that they have a lot of options. It doesn't mean all these guys are going to play meaningful snaps for Tennessee. It doesn't mean they're all going to work out and it's going to be this clean succession plan. But what it does mean is that Tennessee's not messing around. Tennessee is going to have elite talent in that quarterback room at all times during the Heupel era here at Tennessee. So you're looking at GMAC coming in next year, and we'll see if Jake Merklinger sticks around, but former 4-star there. You obviously have 5-star quarterback Nico Yamaliava, who was arguably the best quarterback in his class. He was right there with Arch, depending on which recruiting service you look at. And then obviously after Jake, you have George McIntyre. He's somewhere in that group too. And then you get Faizon Brandon in 2026, who's the #1 overall, and kind of has that Nico potential as well in terms of what he can be. And there's been some Hendon Hooker talk, and Hendon obviously being a North Carolina guy too. That helped things, but just another big win for Tennessee on the recruiting trail in terms of like, hey, what I've talked about is when people give Lincoln Riley these passes and stuff, and we talk about the issues with Lincoln, and one of the things that I think if you put Lincoln Riley ahead of Josh Heupel to this point on your head coaching rankings, one of the things I would posit here in 2024 is I think they both are prioritizing the same kind of things in terms of skill position guys. They've loaded up at wide receiver talent. They believe that they're going to be able to just plug and play at running back and be okay. They're going to load up on quarterback blue chip talent. But the difference, I think, to this point is Heupel has really, really valued the defense, and he hasn't overlooked that. He obviously has had Rodney Gardner here the whole time. Tennessee might have a top 5 pick at edge here going into next year in James Pierce. William Inge comes in from Washington. They've had good linebacker play. I think the defense has gotten better scoring-wise every single season Heupel has gotten here, so they have a chance to be a top 20 scoring defense this year. They were 22nd, I want to say, last year. Got an underrated stat about it, but a long way of me saying it's great that Heupel and Tennessee continue to stack elite quarterback talent every single class here, but it kind of sets the tone, and it's easy to overlook the other stuff that Heupel's doing on the trail and this team is doing. But Faizon Brandon is a huge get and a good starting point for the 2026 recruiting class for the Vols, Matt Green.
So what recruiting service are we judging this number 1 overall player?
Well, this would be 247.
I'm looking at the industry ranking that averages out all of them, and I see him at 10. And number 2 quarterback behind Jared Curtis, who's committed to the University of Georgia in 2026.
Well, we're talking about like 2020. You're doing the recruiting, the average, and I'm talking about 247 specifically. And he is the number 1 overall player in 247. And for the good folks listening at home, Jared Curtis is number 9 and a 4-star right now on 247.
I mean, some have him higher, so depending on who you ask, he's up there.
Jared Curtis, super talented kid too. I mean, Georgia's done solid as well. I mean, one of the things about Georgia, though, which is kind of wild, you look at the 2 highest. Who would you guess is the 2 highest quarterbacks they've brought in the 21st century, and really since they've been keeping track of blue chips? And all that
probably Justin Fields and Stafford. And
nope,
Eason
Stafford's number 3
up there. Eason number
Eason's
2?
number 2. So their 2 biggest didn't work out really at their program. So
yeah,
you just never know
what's going to happen with quarterbacks.
Yeah. You never know, but like you said, Georgia's stacking stuff too, and I mean, obviously they've got a good track record, and we'll see what happens after this year. Like Georgia, it's going to be really interesting. Like the battle next year between Rashada, Gunner, and Ryan Puglisi, and that's going to be fascinating to see who ends up with that battle and who sticks around and who doesn't. But yeah, no, there's no guarantees in this sport, especially at the quarterback position, but it's just good to have options. And that's what Tennessee has done more than anything, is they've made sure that they have a lot of options and talented options at quarterback, however all this unfolds there. Our theme for tonight, Matt Green, Big 12, as we continue our buy or sell prediction series before we get into the Big 2 here over the next 2 to 3 weeks here with the SEC and the Big 10. But the other big group we're going to throw out here, Matt Green, the ACC here tonight, which is now at an awkward 17 teams going into this year, which is going to take some time getting used to, Matt Green. But first up on our buy or sell for you, Matt Green, we have to start with the kings of the conference over the last 12 years. Buy or sell, a team other than Florida State or Clemson will win the ACC this year, Matt Green. What say you?
I think I'm going to have to sell that. I look at, obviously, Clemson, even though 2021 and 2022 were down years, they still won the conference in 2022, but missed out on the ACC championship a year ago. I was really buying that Garrett Riley was going to be the guy that just took the offense to the next level, and I was just so wrong about that year ago. So it is a second year with Garrett Riley, and he's proven, I think, that he's one of the best offensive coordinators in college football. But I'm starting to wonder if Clemson, if that door is shut, and it's just what they were as a national title contender, perennial, if that's just over. So I don't know. It's hard for me to just say Clemson. I know the media had him, I think, first, right? Or did they have Florida State first and Clemson second?
I've seen Florida State.
I think Phil Steele had Clemson first.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And what Florida State, like the last couple of years, like they had a little, not that I'm doubting Mike Norvell just as a coach moving forward, but it was a little bit of like a perfect storm situation. What they were able to get out of the portal, like they were like top 2 in returning production a year ago. And now they're not that. So they obviously still have a lot of talent, but they don't feel like the team that's like perennially there. They feel like right now Florida State is things come together, we can compete for a championship, which is, I would feel like, what happened in 2023. But I don't know that they're an every year type team yet. So you look at who, like Miami, Louisville, NC State. I don't know. Like, I'm not necessarily saying I would pick those teams to win, but I'm taking the field against FSU and Clemson. Also, my dark horse of Syracuse, who's just got the most favorable schedule in the whole conference.
You got him as a dark horse to win the conference?
To get to the ACC championship, maybe. I mean, the schedule matters. Wow. They did some things in the portal. They're a dark horse for sure.
I mean, that's being generous. You get on to me about sneaky, but dark horse, Syracuse Orange, ACC champs.
Hey,
this is, you know what this is? This is like last week, the Iowa State stuff, where people are like, Iowa State, don't count them out. I'm like, I'm going to count them out, because you should always count out the clones. That's what you should be doing. Count out the clones.
Fran Brown made some moves in the portal. You got Kyle McCord as like the worst quarterback Ohio State's had in years, but
are you doing the kicking
he's
and
immediately
screaming
like
bit?
the best quarterback Syracuse has had in a while.
Phil's got the Tigers in the move.
I don't know. I just look at the schedule. I think they're ranked 17th in the conference in strength of schedule. No FSU, no Clemson, no Louisville. Get Miami the final home game at home, the final game of the season. Like, who knows? Don't count out the orange yet.
Well, let's bring it back to Clemson and Florida State. Here's something that folks are not talking about when you're like, if you're going to take them over the field, Matt Green. And my question to you is, Cade Klubnik to this point has not been a good college football quarterback. DJ Uiagalelei, old friend of Clemson's, has not been a good college football quarterback to this point. I think people have mistaken.
I think you can call them both average.
I think Cade is average. I think DJ is bad. I think he's just an objectively bad quarterback.
See, you got to look at the numbers on that, though. Like, he was a game manager at Oregon State, but this 2022 numbers, it's like he was fine. I don't think he was the problem.
He's on school number 3. And usually there's a reason you bounce around a little bit. Like, usually, like, when you bounce around and, okay, like, sometimes after the first one, like, the first transfer is fine. Like, Hendon Hooker obviously made the jump. That was great.
His head coach bounced for another job. Like, I mean, that's a reason to be like, I came. Oregon State's head coach.
Oh, for DJU. Yeah. Excuse me. I was thinking about that. Okay, yeah. DJU, yeah, but it's fine. Like, DJU, I would not be, he's not someone you should be getting excited about if you're a Florida State fan. Like, it's something that I think people are looking at as like, it's just a plug and play and we'll keep this thing humming. Here's my issue too. Florida State's recruiting better. They're very targeted in their cycle. Like this one, like if you look at their class for 2025, it's almost exclusively blue chippers. We'll see what happens with Josh Petty, the interior offensive lineman, this week, if they're able to get him too. But it's still very transfer heavy. Like a lot of their big names were transfers last year. And I mean, obviously Jordan Travis, not being that was not the case, but like this year they need DJU, Roydale Williams, and Trey Benson to be huge playmakers on offense, all transfers. It was great last year that you struck gold and got lucky with the Michigan State situation in terms of the fiasco up there. So you get in a super talented Keon Coleman, who was awesome for you. You were an older team. You had a bunch of NFL guys, especially on the defensive line, Frisk and company. They've done well. Like obviously Jared Verse, one of the all-time great transfer wins to this point out of Buffalo. Like they've done well. Not even just well, like exceptionally well in the portal. But does lightning strike twice? Like if you're a Florida State fan, like are you kind of nervous that you're still like this far into Norvell's tenure, really relying on a lot of transfer guys to all hit simultaneously? Like you need Benson to work. You need him to be a really good receiver out wide. You need DJU to show something he did not show at any previous stop, because I think he's going to have to do more here to keep this thing coming. Roydale Williams, you need him to break out at Florida State. Like, I don't know. I just think this is a worse team than a year ago, and I would be to this point, I'd be surprised if they won it. And it's funny too, because they're the opposite of how Clemson's built. Clemson doesn't take transfers. Like, Clemson's not relying on transfers at all. Like, Florida State's this transfer heavy team, and Clemson's not at all. But I don't know. Like, both schools, I think with Clemson, I trust Riley going into year 2. I think the offense will be better. I trust Klubnik more than I trust DJU. I trust Phil Maffa. Like, I think he's going to have a really good year for Clemson this year. I look at Clemson's schedule. To me, Clemson should be the favorites. I would be surprised on August 4th if Clemson does not win the ACC this year. But, I mean, since 2010, only Pittsburgh in 2021 has won the ACC outside of Florida State and Clemson. It's a crazy stat, but it's just they've dominated the conference. And I think when you look at this season, Clemson, to me, just looks a lot better and safer on paper than the Noles. What say you?
Yeah, because in terms of DJU being a plug and play guy, like Jordan Travis was a playmaker. Like,
yep.
and that was with having guys like Keon Coleman going second round, like with Trey Benson going third round, and a running back going third round, second pick of the third round these days. It's like that's probably like the 4th or 5th running back off the board. I don't have the draft board in front of me right now, but Johnny Wilson also, like, they had a bunch of playmakers, and Jordan Travis was still a lot of the offense and running around making plays. So DJU, I feel like things are just on script, like Oregon State's offense kind of was a year ago. You could lean on the running game. Like, things worked well, but having to be a playmaker, Florida State, I do worry about them this year. In terms of Clemson, though, like, we don't know that DJU was the problem, because Cade Klubnik has not been better, in my opinion, than DJU in their times in college. So I look at Clemson and I'm like, that's a cool stat that, they dominated the ACC for however long, but that's the past as far as I'm concerned. They're just not that dominant team anymore. They might still be the favorite in the conference, because I think this conference could be a little wide open. Like, you could have a couple 3-loss teams or something at the top of this conference a year from 3 months from now at the end of the season. So obviously, and I'm not even someone who's really buying Miami that much either. So it's not like Miami's the reason I'm selling Florida State and Clemson. It doesn't feel like this conference has that true juggernaut right now.
That's fair. Buy or sell, Matt Green. I have Kyron Jones here as the best QB in the conference this year as the buy or sell question. You wanted to throw out Cam Ward here. So is it just between those two? And also make the case, if you're going to buy Cam Ward as the best quarterback in the conference, why do you say that? And I can pause it and throw out why I think it very well might be Drones. Is there some Kenny Pickett buzz with Mr. Drones and Virginia Tech and the 2021 Panthers with 2024 Virginia Tech Hokies? I could see it a little bit. I can see it a little bit, Matt Green.
I'll be honest. Do you know who I get vibes of when I watch Kyron Drones? Like, from a Georgia fan, this is going to sound disrespectful, but it's not disrespectful. I get some Jamie Newman vibes, like the design run. He's got some power, like, and this guy, like, he's not, he throws a nice deep ball. He's not the most accurate passer, but I mean, this guy put up some pretty good numbers a year ago and 800 yards on the ground, like, super dangerous. So he feels like he's a good player, like, in the way that, in the way that KJ Jefferson is like one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC every year. Obviously he's UCF now, but it's like, you look at the end of the season, it's like, dude, KJ Jefferson can play. He's got some good numbers. I think he might be, but you actually watch the games and you just watch the season, and Arkansas was never competitive. Like, they had a one good season with KJ Jefferson, I guess, when they were competitive, but I don't know. It's just, there's something lacking, and we'll see. Virginia Tech could be that team and maybe takes a step forward. But right now, I think you have to say that Cam Ward is the best quarterback in this conference, even if he is coming into first year in a new system in Miami.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, too, which is fun. I thought you were going to say, like, when you were going to KJ Jefferson, I thought you were going to go some classic VT Hokies, which Here's what's great about Jerome's being awesome and running the football really well and being the next exciting Virginia Tech quarterback. I miss good Virginia Tech quarterbacks. Marcus Vick, Michael Vick, what was it? Brian Randall.
Marcus Vick, the first one you named. Tyrod Taylor, sir.
Tyrod Taylor. What I'm saying
Tyrod
is like
Taylor won games, so it's like.
Well, Randall was pretty good in those early 2000s, right? Like he had a pretty good run there too. Who else have they had? Let's name some Virginia Tech quarterbacks here, Matt Green, because Virginia Tech has had some absolutely great quarterback play.
One of those is an LSU quarterback, either Marcus Randall or Brian Randall. I'm forgetting which one was Virginia Tech, which one was LSU, around the same time.
It was, let me see here. I was right, Brian Randall. Yeah, Brian Randall in 03 and 04. You had Michael Vick in 99 and 2000. Look at this run here. So you go.
We didn't even
Vick,
name Mike Vick.
Yeah, you go. From,
I guess it just goes without saying.
You go from Vick to Randall to Marcus to Sean Glennon to Tyrod Taylor to Logan Thomas. Then you get Josh Jackson
Thomas
later
is still
on.
In the league.
Oof. And then
tight end.
Yeah, and then it got messy when you went from Michael Brewer, Josh Jackson, Ryan Willis.
I think Logan Thomas is where it ended. I mean, hence why that guy's playing tight end right now.
Yeah, that's where it ended. But what a run. Like if you go from 2010 to 2000, that was our childhood basically, Matt Green. That Virginia Tech was just putting out dudes. And I think Drones is the next dude out of Hokie Nation. So Brent Pry's doing a really good job. I mean, the kid from Virginia Tech, they said, quote, he set a Virginia Tech bowl record and military bowl record, 176 rushing yards in the 41-20 win over Tulane. He was the MVP of the military bowl. He, against their arch rival, he threw for 244 TDs, or for yards and 3 TDs against Virginia. Like you said, he's run the ball extremely well. He's just dynamic and fun, but like you also said, the accuracy's got to get better. Like the accuracy's pretty bad. He only completed 58% of his passes last year, but he also only threw 3 picks, 17 TDs to 3 picks. And what's weird though, I was looking at like the projections for this year for Vatech. They're 44th in offensive S&P plus coming into this year, which I thought they'd be a lot higher in terms of what the numbers thought about this offense and the Hokies. They got 3 returning transfers at wide receiver that I like a lot: Lane, Jennings, and Felton. So he's gonna have dudes. I think the running game's gonna be strong. I don't know. I would just buy. I could not buy enough Vatech stock here in the Brent Pry era and Mr. Drones in Hokie Nation, and we need big time games with Inner Sandman being a factor again. Like we need Vatech. You know, there's some schools we need them playing important football games again, and Virginia Tech is one of those schools. So I'm excited that we might be getting that back this fall, because when Inner Sandman's walking, it's gonna be great. Like I need them. Who do they? Do they get Clemson or Florida State at home this year?
I'd have to pull up their schedule. I don't have it in front of me,
now.
but yeah, it's cool, but I think this is a generational thing. This is kind of just, if you were
They get Clemson at home on November 9th, by the way, Matt Green. That it's gonna be a little bit chilly. Inner Sandman rocking. That's what we're talking about right there. That might decide the ACC. Let's go. What do you mean generational thing?
This is a generational thing. It's just like if you grew up in the 90s with Florida at that time, like there's a chance that we just witnessed like the best era of Virginia Tech football, and that's all they ever are going to be. Like Frank Beamer, Virginia Tech has no football history outside of the years that Frank Beamer is there, which luckily for them was like 35 years or something. But I don't know. There's no reason why Virginia Tech necessarily has to come back. Like they could just be, that could have been the best it ever gets. Like Frank Beamer's not walking through that door.
Yeah.
Debbie Downer over here.
You are Debbie Downer over here. Buy or sell. Speaking of Debbie Downer, Dave Clawson, sneaky, needs to right the ship this year at Wake Forest, Matt Green.
Absolutely sell. I don't even know how this got in the rundown, sir. Excluding the COVID year, last year's his first losing season in 8 years. It's at Wake Forest, sir. What are we doing here? He could probably have like 3 or 4 more losing seasons and right the ship.
Well, that's what's interesting. So they were really bad last year, and I think they're going to be really bad again. Only Virginia is projected to be worse in the ACC this year than the Demon Deacons. Hank Bachmeier, former Boise State quarterback, he will be the new quarterback. So post Sam Hartman, it's been kind of a mess there. He's only had one 10-win season, and I understand. Like, with a caveat, we have to say it's Wake Forest, not a great. Like, it's just baseball and basketball, especially baseball right now, they're humming. But football, it's obviously a little bit different. Size of school, academics, all that kind of stuff. I understand there are limitations at Wake, but like they're projected to be the second worst team in the conference again. They've only got one double-digit win season ever with Clawson at Wake Forest. He's right at around 500 career at Wake. He's 30-49 in conference play. The team's gonna be bad again. I don't know. All I'm saying is, like, what if we've seen the Clawfence run its course? Like, I'm pro Clawfence, but what if we've seen that he's maxed out what he could do at Wake, and it's time to maybe try another gimmicky. I shouldn't say gimmicky, and I don't mean gimmicky in a negative light. It worked, and it worked at Wake. I'm pro Clawfence. I'm pro Wake Forest being good. Like, many have said, who's the biggest Riley Skinner guy on any college football podcast? It's always been Chase Thomas, biggest Riley Skinner guy. Like, you can't find a bigger one than me over here.
Hartman. I don't even remember you saying Riley Skinner. All I think is your obsession with Sam Hartman.
No, the obsession to Sam Hartman is our wives, Matt Green, and we've been very clear about that, and that's always been the conversation on this very program. But I don't know. Like, what if Wake's bad again? Like, if you're a Wake fan, are you just kind of nervous that you're about to go into a really sad, bad era? And if you're Dave Clawson, are you like, I need to jump out of here before this gets really bad? Like, is there a part of you that's like, I need to jump ship here in the modern era, that Wake might become one of the worst jobs in the Power Four, and this might just be bad now for the foreseeable future?
I mean, one, I think it's Wake Forest, and this isn't necessarily the kind of place that's trying to win national titles. So I think Dave Clawson's done about as good as you can do at Wake Forest, and I think he's earned himself a lot of down years, honestly, from this point. But, I mean, you look at where Wake Forest is going to be right now, Clemson and Florida State trying to get out of this conference. Like, who knows what the big boys in this conference are going to do? Like, I don't know the jobs that are out there, like, trying to get Dave Clawson right now. Like, yeah, if he can get a better job than Wake Forest, yeah, maybe he should. I don't know. But they might be, like, to use Chase Thomas's term, they might be sneaky well positioned in the future ACC if some of these big boys leave, like kind of how like some of these teams in the Big 12 went from kind of middle of the road to contenders as soon as Texas and Oklahoma walked out the door. Like, so I don't know. I mean, does it mean as much to be a contender in a weaker conference? I don't know, but I think Dave Clawson, I think his job security should be just fine right now.
Yeah. Well, Matt Green, next up here, buy or sell. So this is going to be optimistic. We're going to get away from negative here, in a second. Haynes King, Georgia Tech. Do they beat Notre Dame or Miami at home, in the later part of their schedule to show that they have arrived late in the season with Brent Key entering his second year as the full-time head coach at Georgia Tech, Matt Green?
I don't know if those specific ones, Miami and Notre Dame, like those could be the two best. Well, I guess Notre Dame doesn't. That it is like an ACC rotational game. Does that count to the conference record? Do you know?
I don't think so.
It's just kind of a schedule thing. So obviously you have Georgia at a conference. That's not going to impact your record, but I think Georgia Tech is the chaos team in the ACC this year, simply because they're just going to play so many of the good teams in the ACC. Like, and that's not even including Notre Dame, like you brought up, and Georgia at a conference. Like right now, based on the way the media picked the teams to finish in the ACC this year, the crazy part is they're not playing Clemson this year because that was kind of a low-key rivalry. I don't know if you could call Georgia Tech Clemson a rivalry. I guess just proximity. It was a rivalry in the 2000s, in the Chan Gailey era, the James Davis, CJ Spiller era. But going this year, Georgia Tech is going to play Florida State, who is picked first. Miami was third. NC State fourth. Louisville fifth. Virginia Tech sixth. And then they don't play any of the bottom 5 teams based on the media predictions going into 2024. So Georgia Tech, I don't know which team they beat, but I think Haynes King is going to be one of the better quarterbacks. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Haynes King, if we're sitting here talking about first team all ACC quarterback Haynes King, and they still just go 6-6 or something, because this is a really tough schedule. But I think they're going to beat somebody, and I think this team is going to be improved from a year ago.
I think they're going to beat somebody too. I think one of the things, and we talk about the chaos team because I have Cal as the chaos team we'll get to in a second, but I think Haynes King's really good. Like, Haynes King was a lot of fun, obviously. I mean, their signature win last year was Mario Cristobal's brain fart at the end of Miami, Georgia Tech, and not kneeling it. They fumble. And Haynes King, what people forget is, like, yeah, Miami made a brain fart. Haynes King immediately went down the field and made some huge plays. And obviously the huge touchdown pass late to ice it and win the game outright. And they stole one in Coral Gables. But, like, Haynes King's a gamer, Matt Green. Haynes King is, just because he lost the battle between Connor Wegman, who's also a really good player at Texas A&M, I think both teams won. That's like one of those rare transfer splits where it's like it worked out for both guys. Haynes King is the guy at Tech, and he's going to thrive and has thrived. And Wegman, if he can stay healthy, is going to thrive in College Station. Here's something else that's going to help him. Brent Key coaches offensive line well. He adds guys. They get a 4-star offensive tackle out of Duluth over the weekend. Brent Key is recruiting really well in the trenches. They've had one of the best offensive line
from that other 5-star offensive lineman the other day, who I think, is at least interested, right?
Oh, Josh Petty. Yeah. Josh Petty is down to Florida State and him. But I mean, like, that shows like he is doing something right on the recruiting trail, especially on the offensive line. But this is from GT Athletics. Quote, Haynes King was one of only 2 Power 5 players with at least 2,800 passing yards, 25 touchdown passes, 700 rushing yards, and 10 touchdown runs in 2023. He joined Heisman Trophy winner and number 2 overall pick in the 2024 draft, Jaden Daniels of LSU, to reach that number. I mean, that's high praise. Like, that's not even high praise. It's just facts. Like, Haynes King was a baller last year. Buster Faulkner is sneaky one of the most underrated play callers, I think, in college football. So I think Brent Key is hired well. They replaced some guys on defense. I think defense was horrific last year, and that was a lot of the issues with Tech, was not the offense. It was just the defense was bad. They make changes there, so I think defense should be better. They're going to get somebody. Like, I don't know if it's Notre Dame at home. I don't know if it's Miami at home. They beat them last year. But Georgia Tech's coming. Like, this is going to be a team that wins, I think, probably 8 games. Feels about right. Like, I think Georgia Tech is trending up, and I'd buy some stock in the Jackets. I'm not saying they're going to win the ACC this year, but I do think Georgia Tech is going to cruise to a bowl and probably get at least 1 signature win, maybe 2 on this schedule, if Haynes King's able to stay healthy for the full year and the defense is a little bit better.
If Georgia Tech becomes a contender in the next couple years and Brent Key's the guy that brings them back to being like a respectable football program, I feel like Jeff Collins is going to deserve some sort of credit. Like, I feel like he was they had to crawl before they could walk. And he was like the guy who had to, get him in the 21st century, get him some Adidas uniforms just to start with, start repping the ATL, stop running the triple option. Like, the state of Georgia is loaded with talent. Like, you can see, like, someone like Tennessee right now is trying to make a living off of getting this second tier talent in the state of Georgia, right? Like, if Tennessee can consistently get 4 or 5 top 20 players out of the state of Georgia every year, and they could get more than that, like, that's going to be good enough to start to build to their program. Like, Georgia Tech started to get like some top 30s, top 40 players out of the state of Georgia. Like, you can do that if you're not running the triple option. So, like, Jeff Collins, what was he? 10-28 in his 3.5 years at Georgia Tech, but he deserves some sort of credit. The Adidas uniforms alone, that was game changer from Russell Athletic in like 2016, whatever year that was. Still had Russell Athletic uniforms. There's no excuse for that.
Okay. Also, the worst wasn't even that. The worst was the honeycomb uniforms. Those were awful.
But those were definitely Russell Athletic doing. Like, that was when
terrible.
They were off.
I don't care who it was, but those were terrible.
It was everyone's with Nike, Under Armour, Adidas. Like, they were like the one.
I think the Russell Athletics founder is a Tech grad. Is that right? I feel like that's what it was.
Is that right? That would make a lot more sense.
I'm pretty certain, don't quote me on that, but I feel like I remember reading that years ago. Let's see here. As we move on to the next thing. Yeah, Russell Athletic was founded. Did he go to Georgia Tech?
Dead air we got here.
This is great radio.
We'll get on that. We'll get back to you.
So, Matt Green, next up here, buy or sell. Virginia, they have the worst S&P Plus projection in the conference going into this year. Does the schedule set up for that to be the case on the field, Matt Green?
I mean, I don't think this is the toughest schedule in the conference by any means. It's like, it's not Murderer's Row or anything. It's Virginia, so it's like, it's not going. I imagine they're going to be favored in like 2 games, maybe all year. Like Vanderbilt is a likely loss, but like I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt could be sneaky. Who knows? Is that stadium going to be finished yet by the time for the 2024 the renovations? I don't know. Like Marshall at a conference. Oh shoot, I'm looking at the wrong team. I'm looking at Virginia Tech's schedule. Oh, there we go. It makes more sense. Richmond Spiders is who they open up with. They go at Clemson. They have Louisville. Like they play some tough teams. Notre Dame, obviously, but at Virginia Tech to end the season. But it's not like just a gauntlet like Georgia Tech's schedule or something. But I mean, with the talent Virginia has coming back, like I mean, what are the real expectations for Virginia in 2024?
That's a good question. I don't know if you're a fan. Well, it goes back to like how when you're younger you have this different, you grow up and you just don't reflect on what is what's true, because like Thomas Jones, Chris Long, there were some dudes. I mean, Bryce Perkins was fun a couple
Aaron
years
Brooks
ago. Yeah, like they've had guys, they're barbers, obviously.
Rickershaw Ferguson.
Yeah, like they used to have dudes like Matt Schaub. They used to have guys and they were a pretty solid program. I was like, it was pretty good. And then like I went back through here, Matt Green, because I was looking at it, I'm like, man, they might be the worst team in the conference again. And I'm looking at it, and they've won 1 division title in the ACC, Matt Green. I thought Bronco Mendenhall did a really great job there, and I was like, oh, he probably was like 7 games over 500, and I looked at it. He was 36-38 in Charlottesville. They haven't been ranked at all at any point since 2019, Matt Green. But the fun part is here, if you're going to be bad, and I'm a big advocate of this, you better be fun bad. And their quarterback who was forced into action because their starter got hurt and in and out, and it was just bad quarterback play. It was a mess in offense year 1 for Tony Elliott. But Colin Drea is fun. I don't know how much stuff you watched of him last year. He is fun. I don't know if he's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be awful. He played as a true freshman last year.
He made things happen.
He made things happen. He also made things happen he shouldn't have. His 3.7 interception rate would have led FBS if he qualified with enough attempts from streaking the lawn here, Matt Green. The man is throwing the ball all over the yard. There's not one throw and not one window he doesn't think he can connect on, and that's what you need out of a UVA quarterback in 2024. You need a guy with no fear. Colin Drea is, I have no idea what he's going to be. But I think if you're a UVA fan, you're like, let's ride this. Let's see what happens. We got nothing else going for us. Maybe he's terrible. Also, maybe he's just fun. Maybe he's fun bad. Maybe he's actually fun good, and we can sneak and win a couple more games than we should have and go bowling. I don't know. I think UVA is just kind of wild. You look at the program. Not a lot of wins. Career, they're around there 500, I think, career win-losses as a football program, but been in the ACC forever and never really made any real noise consistently atop the conference like they have in baseball and basketball. But I don't know. I think it will be interesting to see if Elliott can get this train moving in the right direction. But it's a tough job, and I don't know. The quarterback play is enough to warrant some peaks in a UVA game this fall, because I promise you're going to see Colin Drea pop up on Twitter.com every Saturday doing stuff.
The media picked Virginia to finish 16th out of 17 teams in the conference this year. So
who was last?
We shall see. Stanford is last.
Okay. Next up,
your boy
here,
Dave
Matt
Clawson
Green.
and Wake Forest are 15th. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Buy or sell, Matt Green. Final big one for you. SMU. There are only 4 schools ahead of SMU in FPI, Football Power Index, over on ESPN. Are you buying the Mustangs as a sneaky dark horse, making the big jump across the country into the Atlantic here from Dallas, Texas, and going to play a wild schedule here? But what do you make of SMU, Preston Stone, Rhett Lashley recruiting really well as well? But do you think they have a realistic shot of actually being one of the best? I think they get FSU at home early in the season, so that's a big deal too. That'll be a sneaky huge game for the Noles and the Mustangs. But what say you about SMU in 2024 in the ACC?
This is a hard sell for me, sir. I'm not buying SMU at all. I think there's just a strong history of teams with a lot of success. Like, it's one thing if you're a Missouri, a Texas A&M, they came in not year 1, but I think year 2. Well, shoot, Johnny Manziel was year 1, right? Missouri won the SEC East year 2, but Johnny Manziel, they got lucky. They had Johnny Manziel, but they're also going from the Big 12 to the SEC. Yeah. You look at teams going from the G5 to power conferences, and the best of the best have not fared well. Let me run through these for you. So let's take it way back. TCU, final 4 years in the Mountain West Conference, went 47-5. Went 7-6 year 1 in the Big 12, 4-8 year 2. Like, just a completely different ball game. Utah, 42-10 their last 4 years in the Mountain West. Went 8-5 first year in the Pac-12. It's not the same. West Virginia, 78-24 in the final 8 years in the Big East, and I only did those last 8 years because that's when actually Miami and Virginia Tech and Boston College left. So they called it a power conference, but it wasn't a power conference anymore. They had 8+ wins every year for the final 10 years they were in the Big East. 4 10+ win seasons. They've had 1 10-win season in their 12 years in the Big 12. They went, 7-6 first year they got in the Big 12. Then you look at the Big 12 this past year with all 4 new teams they brought in. BYU was 29-9 the last 3 years as independent, 5-7 year 1. UCF 59-17 in their final 6 years in the AAC, 6-7 year 1. Cincinnati 53-11 the last 5 years in the AAC, 3-9 year 1. And then Houston 20-7 in their last 2 years in the AAC, 4-8 year 1. Like, I think the level of competition going from a G5 to a power conference, even if the ACC is not what the Big Ten and the SEC are right now, there's still just a lot more big time, like, potential, just facing way more teams that have potential NFL players on them than you were consistently in the American Conference. Like, as good as SMU could be moving forward in a big market like Dallas and whatever their recruiting budget is, NIL and all that stuff people like to talk about, and now getting the money of a power conference TV deal and all that, or although that's a whole other discussion of what the ACC is going to be worth. But SMU is, I can understand their future being brighter, but not in 2024.
Yeah, I think, but like you said, with Manziel's like Preston Stone's a good player. Like, what if he's the best quarterback in the conference this year? What does that get them to? Rhett Lashley is one of the best offensive minds of the sport. Like, they've recruited well. Like Texas, obviously, like, they've woken that giant up here a little bit with SMU. What I think is interesting too is, like, are they kind of like the UCF of the conference, where it's not going to happen right away, like you said, where it's just not a good track record, but, like, are we going to look 3 years from now and UCF has stacked the best classes in the Big 12 and a great recruiting area in Florida, SMU the same way,
legitimately landing players over Florida and Miami and stuff.
Right. And then they're eventually like, oh, SMU is just the best team in the ACC now and the best program. Like, they're actually recruiting better than Clemson, and they're recruiting better than whoever. Like, what if that's what happens? I could see a similarity between the plight of UCF and SMU, where, like, yeah, there's gonna be some growing pains here, but they're gonna keep recruiting at a high level. 2 great coaches in Malzahn and Lashley, who obviously have a lot of track record with each other too. I don't know. I could see that paying off in a way, but it also just depends on what the ACC looks like in the next couple of years. But that also helps SMU if Clemson and Florida State get out, because then it's really could become their conference to run and step up in.
Well, and you just look at the state of Texas, with Texas and Baylor and TCU and Texas Tech and A&M. Like, there's 8 Power 4 conference teams or so in that state alone. Like, SMU, you're just going to get forgotten about with all those other Power Conference teams, and now Houston obviously jumped up as well. But if now having ACC next to your name, that logo on your field, like it's instant credibility. So I understand like the future could definitely be brighter being in a power conference, but the competition also gets tougher.
Yeah. Final one here, Matt Green. Cal is my chaos team. Jaden Ott led Pac-12 in all-purpose yards per game last year. He's a dude. I remember early on, I was locked in. I don't know if you were locked in on Cal, Auburn, but they had Auburn on the ropes at home and gave them a heck of a game.
That was just a good old-fashioned fun college football game right there. Nobody wanted to win that game.
No, but it was fun. And Cal, Justin Wilcox is sneaky solid, I think, as the Cal head football coach, and has been for many years and stuck around. And I'm a Justin Wilcox guy, and they've gone through so many different offensive coordinators over the years, and he just keeps on keeping on. But Merriweather comes in from Notre Dame at wide receiver. Their offense is pretty solid with Fernando Mendoza. So this is from Cal's site. Quote, Cal's offense took a long-awaited leap when sophomore Fernando Mendoza took over at quarterback in week 6, with the Bears averaging 41 points per game in Pac-12 games against Oregon State, USC, Washington State, and UCLA. They figured some stuff out with Mendoza. They bring in Chandler Rogers from North Texas, and they're competing, but if Mendoza runs it back, you got Ott, who might be the best running back in the conference. Like, Cal, I think, has some, like, they're also going to get the tired teams, right? Like, Stanford just is going to be bad, so it doesn't really, you get an advantage there of getting some cross-country flights for some of these guys. I think Cal might be a huge pain for some of these schools coming in across the country from the ACC and not ready for Ott and this high-powered offense and a competent Justin Wilcox team. That's part of it, too, is, like, Cal's going to get at least one football team in the ACC, maybe a big time program, but they're going to benefit the most of the newcomers to me. Like, Miami comes to Cal in October 5th. That should be one. They got to go to Auburn early. Like, their schedule's sneaky, kind of tough, but I mean, Syracuse goes to Cal in mid-November. You talk about Syracuse schedule, could not be further apart. Like, Syracuse is flying all the way across the country, and Cal's getting them at home. Like, I think that's a sneaky one that you feel good about if you're Cal.
Is Cal Syracuse further apart than Cal Miami?
Yeah, right.
Those might be similar.
Yeah.
They also get Friday night game. They go at Wake Forest. They're losing that game. Going cross country on a Friday night, Cal's losing that game. I'm a big weekday chaos fan. You know that. You
are a big weekday chaos fan. Well, that's all I've got, Matt Green. Your official prediction, though, on the ACC this season. You've got, who do you have winning? Who do you have having the worst record in the conference? And who is your safest bet of anyone? Who do you feel you're most confident in, like betting the over or under for the ACC this year?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question there. I told you I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, but I think because of how I feel about Florida State and Clemson, I think I'm going to take Miami to win the ACC this year. And people are going to probably be like, oh, everyone always takes Miami every year. I have not. I'm not someone. I'm very skeptical of Mario Cristobal. I think one of those two gets in the ACC championship with Clemson or Florida State. Oh man, give me Clemson to get back to the conference championship. So I'll go Miami beating Clemson in the ACC championship. Safest bet? What do you mean? Just like over under win total?
Yeah. Who do you think is the safest? Like they're hitting the over. I think I
saw Clemson at like 8.5 or something, and
yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. Like with how Clemson's judged as a title contender, like going 10-2. And like losing the ACC championship is like a bad year for Dabo Swinney at this point, right? Like that's 10-3. Like, I think they're a safe bet to win at least 9 games, right?
I would say so.
Obviously, you got Georgia at a conference in South Carolina too, but I don't know. I think that's probably the safest bet.
I would lean. I lean right now. I'm going to say Clemson wins. I think Clemson plays. Let's say Clemson. I'm going to say Clemson. Let's do it. Clemson, Virginia Tech in the ACC title game. I'm going to throw them out there, but I think Clemson wins the conference. And then let's throw in worst team in the conference. I'm going to say Wake. I think Virginia is surprised a little bit. I think Wake's going to be the worst team. I think Stanford is coached really well too. I like Taylor over there in Stanford. I think they sneak in and get a little bit better than people think. My safest bet though is probably, I like the Clemson one. I mean, obviously, because I'm just picking them to win the conference. Let me pull up their win totals real quick.
Say that again. Who's Clemson beating? Virginia Tech?
Yeah, I'm going to say Virginia Tech here. Give me the safest over-under. I think the safest over-under is Georgia Tech over 5.5 wins.
I do like that. What's NC State sitting at on their over-under?
9.5, a sneaky high amount. I don't know. I don't love, or 8.5. That's a little bit better, but still, I don't know. That's a little shaky for me. I like them at 9-3.
I was gonna say we did an entire ACC podcast here and didn't mention the Wolfpack, who's sneaky, the most consistent program in this whole freaking conference. Like, they just win like 8-9 games like every year. So if it's sitting at 8.5, it's tough to know if this is an 8-win year or a 9-win year. But I
also just don't know how
I feel
Grayson
just
McCall is
obligated to mention Dave Ford. Say that again.
I don't know if I'm a believer in McCall making the jump here. Injury stuff last year, it was awkward with the new coaching staff, but I don't know. I'm not sure I'm all in on the McCall stuff.
Definitely a gimmicky kind of offense. I question how it translates, but obviously the guy's got talent. I felt obligated to shout out Dave Doran and the Wolfpack because I don't think we mentioned him this whole podcast. And NC State is definitely a dark horse to contend for the ACC title. Like, I mean, they were right there. 9. Did they win 10? They went 9 last year. 9-4 a year ago. So NC State could be right there, especially if Florida State and Clemson aren't quite as good as we think they'll be. And NC State obviously beat Clemson a year ago at home. So do they go to Clemson this year? I don't know if you have that in front of you.
I don't know. You might need to pull that one up.
Yes, they go at Clemson, 4th game of the week. Also, totally forgot about, you didn't even mention it over here, in Charlotte versus the Tennessee Volunteers, 2nd week of the season. So that's not going to.
What do you mean? That's an L.
So I'm saying towards their over/under win total, like at a conference game like that, isn't going to help. But
no,
I don't know. It's not the toughest schedule, so we'll see. No Florida State, no Louisville. They had no Miami on this schedule, so if they can get at Clemson, 4th game of the season, like they could definitely be a contender. I mean, I don't know how good Clemson's going to be this year, but obviously
Clemson protects them. There's death taxes and Clemson winning at home. Like it's going to be hard to get me to bet against Clemson at home ever.
Hey, they lost at home last year.
Yeah, to the team that won the conference, Matt Green.
That could be the Wolfpack in 2024.
Wait, has NC State ever? Hold on, has NC State ever won the ACC?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Have they played for the ACC championship? Not since they haven't had a championship game, I'm sure.
Okay, they have not.
Conference championship says 7 on their Football Reference page. So okay, I don't know when the most recent.
Here's what I'm looking at here. They have not won the ACC since 1978. 79. Yeah.
So basically, I think we all remember that. Probably the 78 team, right? 9-3, or I guess 79 went 5-1 in the conference. So maybe that was the one that did it, even though they went 7-4 overall. Tough out of conference schedule, that 79 season. We all remember that 79 season.
I mean, from when Florida State joined in 91, Clemson, I mean, there's a Georgia Tech stuff sprinkled in here, man. But you talk about dominance. Like Virginia Tech, like you talked about that early 2000s, they really crashed the party. But outside of a blip, Georgia Tech stuff, like it's been all Clemson and Florida State for our entire life, with a little bit of Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech splattered in there.
Yeah, I said 79 NC State. Ironically, like I didn't remember it, but I think there was some sort of story about this. Bo Ryan was their coach in 79. I think he got the LSU job and then died in like a plane accident or something. He never coached LSU. There's some sort of story that on SEC Network about that. So he's like remembered at LSU, but I think he died before he ever coached a game. But I was just looking at it after he left NC State. Monty Kiffin was actually NC State's coach for 3 years. But Bo Rein is how you spell his last name. I don't know if you can find that, but yeah, I think I think he got the LSU job and then had some sort of accident, there's some sort of SEC story about him.
Wow.
I don't know. I just threw that in there last second.
That's wild. That's sad. Yeah, he went 7-4, 9-3 at NC State, 27-18 overall, and then that's crazy. It was a recruiting trip back from Baton Rouge to Shreveport. Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's terrible. I did not know that. Well, there you go. Matt Green, anything else you got here on the ACC before we wrap up and dive into the Big Ten next week?
That's all I got, sir. The ACC should be a chaos conference this year. If Miami is going to be one of the favorites, I just feel like, I don't know, something crazy.
I don't think it's going to be chaos. I think it's going to be pretty chalky. I think Big 12 is chaos. Big 12,
I could see the ACC, some of these teams like Virginia Tech.
Here we go.
Virginia Tech, you just pick Virginia Tech to make the conference championship. You're saying it's not going to be a chaos league?
That's not chaos. I just told you, Virginia Tech has made appearances. Virginia Tech has been there before.
Media's got Virginia Tech at like 6th. That's all I'm saying. That would be a little chaotic if the preseason 6th gets in the conference championship. I'm just saying, like, this is probably the year North Carolina breaks through because nobody's even talking about North Carolina.
You big Max Johnson guy?
They're the team that just constantly underperforms the big expectations. So in a year where you're not expecting anything, maybe North Carolina breaks through and beats some people. I don't know. But I don't know. We didn't mention Duke either. Manny Diaz, year 1, not necessarily taking over a rebuild, right? Like he's taken over Duke football kind of as healthy as it's been in a while.
Yeah, Malik Murphy would be fun, but 5.5 over under. Like they're just fighting for a bowl. They'll be okay. But yeah, I mean, we could have talked Stanford, we could talk Syracuse, but look, you don't cover everybody. Like you don't get the whole. We're like it's a power 2 world here, Matt Green. We don't hit on everybody anymore. But you know that it'll be a fun conference. I just think in terms of the Big 12 versus the ACC, I think the Big 12 is going to have more topsy-turvy stuff than the ACC. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, those will be fun. And the last thing I'll say is we got to start putting your names on some of these ballots, these preseason predictions. And I don't know. I couldn't give you an in-depth, analysis on the Boston College Eagles in 2024 necessarily. That's not necessarily my expertise, but they were picked to go 14th and finish 14th in the conference. And one person has them winning the entire ACC this year. And you got to put your name on that. Like we got to start taking people's credentials when they do things like that. The 1 or 2 people that didn't vote Greg Maddux as a first ballot Hall of Famer, like we got to take that guy's job. Like just take that guy's credential. I don't want to see it anymore.
There you go. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I will talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.